Is that high enough? O he Vaishnava Thakura Doyara Sagara He Dasa Karuna Kori. O he Vaishnava Thakura Doyara Sagara He Dasa Karuna Kori. Diya Parachaya Shodo He Amai Tomara Charana Dori. Chaya Bhegatomi Chaya Dosha Shodhi Chaya Guna Deho Dase. Chaya Satsanga Deho He Amare Boshashi Shangera Ashe. Ekaki Amar Nahi Pai Balo Harinama Sankirtane. Tumi kripa kori Sharabindu diya Dehon Krishna nama dhane. Krishna se tomar, Krishna dite paro, tomara shakati ache. Amito Kanga Krishna Krishna Boli Dayatava Pache Pache. O he Vaishnava Thakur Doyara Sagaro Edase Karuna Kori. Translation. O Venerable Vaishnav Thakur, O Ocean of Mercy, be merciful to this servant of yours and purify me with the shade of your lotus feet. Everyone, your lotus feet I humbly hold. By helping me control the 6 urges and purifying me of the 6 faults, bestow upon your servant the 6 good qualities. O Master, please give me the 6 kinds of holy association. I have sat down here hoping to have your company. Next. Alone, I do not find the strength to chant the holy name of Hari. Please be merciful and bless me with a drop of faith. Bestow on me the great treasure of the holy name of Krishna. Krishna is yours, and you can give him to me, for such is your power. This wretch is simply running behind you, crying out, Krishna, Krishna. Jaya Vaishnava Thakur, Vaishnava Thakur, Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada. Ujjvala Varana. Try that. Shri Sachitanaya Ashtakam by Srila Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, whose house we're going to very soon. Try. No, play it. Ujjvala Varana. Ujjvala Varana Gaura Varade Nilasita Nirabari Bhavavide Tribhuvana Pavana Krupaya Lesham Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Sachitanayam. Gadgarantara Baba Vikara Durjana Tarjana Nada Vishala Abhavaya Bhajana Karana Karunam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Sachitanayam. Arunam Bharadhara Charu Kapola Indu Vinindita Nakachaya Ruchiram Jalpitan Jatuna Nama Vinodam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Sachitanayam. Vigalita Nayana Kamala Jaladharam Bhushana Navarasa Baba Vikaram Gati Ati Mantara Nitya Vilasam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Sachitanayam. Shri Sachinandan Gaura Hari Ki Jai. Chanchala Charu Charada Gati Ruchira Manjira Ranjita Paraduka Maduram. Chandra Vedendita Shitala Varanam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Sachitanayam. Katikati Tora Kamandalu Dandam Divya Kalevara Mundita Mundam. Dujana Kalmasha Kandana Dandam Tam pranamami cha Shri Satchitanayam. Bhushana Burajalakkavalitam Kampita Bindhara Vararuchiram Malaya Javira Chitta Ujjalatilakam Tam pranamami cha Shri Satchitanayam. Ninditaruna Kamala Dalanayana Ajanulambita Shibujagalam Kalivara Kaishora Nartaka Vesham Tam pranamami cha Shri Satchitanayam. Lavana Gauravara Deham Vilasita Nirabari Baba Videham Satchidanand Gaurahari Ki Jai. Tribhuvana Pavana Kripaya Lesham Tam pranamami cha Shri Satchitanayam. Jai Satchidananda, Jai Satchidananda, Jai Satchidananda, Jai Gaurahari. Jai Satchidananda, Jai Satchidananda, Jai Satchidananda, Jai Gaurahari. Jai Gaura Haribo, 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 Jai Gaura Haribo. Jai Gaura Premanande. Vrindavan, go to Vrindavan. Vrindavan Mangalarti, please. Vibhabari Shesha, everyone. Aloka Pravesha, Nidrachari Uttajiva, Bolo Hari Hari, Mukunda Murari, Rama Krishna Hayajiva, Nrsimha Vamana Madhusudana, Chandranandana Shyama, Bhutana Katana, Kaitava Shatana, Jai Dasharati Rama, Yashoda Dulala, Govinda Gopala, Vrindavana Purandara, Gopi Priyagana, Radhika Ramana, Bhuvana Sundara Bhara, Manatakara, Makanataskara, Gopi Jana Vastrahari, Brajara Rakala, Gopa Vrindavana, Chittahari Vanshitahari, Yogindra Vandana Shinandanandana Rajadana Bayahari Navina Nirada Rupa Manohara Mohana Vanshirihari Yashodanandana Kamsani Surana Asavilasi Kadambakanana Rajaparayana Vrindavitina Dinahati Ananda Vardana Vimani Ketana Hulashara Jojakama Gopangana Chitta Vinona Samasta Gunagana Dhamma. Last chant. Yamuna Jivana Keliparayana Manasa Chandrata Ora Namashudarasa Gau Krishna Dasa Rakho Vachana Manamoda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Shri Jagannath Ashtakam Ki Jai. Together. Kadachit kalindita tapipina sangi karavo Muhabirinari vadana kamalas radamakupa Rama Shambhu Brahma Marapa Ganesha Chittapado Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagani Ahavatune Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagani Ahavatune Jai Venum Shirati Shikiti Shamgatikate Jukula Metrante Sahachara Katacham Vidhate Sadashimad Vrindavana Vasati Lila Parichayo Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagani Apatume Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagani Apatume Mahamboreshti Rekanaka Ruchire Nila Shikare Prasadanta Sahaja Balabhadrena Balina Subhadramadhyasta Sakala Sura Seva Bhattarado Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagani Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhaktume Paparabara Sajala Jaladashe Niruchiro Rama Mani Rama Sura Rama Lapanke Ruhamukha Surendra Raja Shruti Ganashika Gita Tarito Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhaktume Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhaktume Raka Rudra Gachampa Milita Bhuje Vapatalai Pradurbhavam Prapanamukha Kanyasadaya Daya Sindur Bandhu Sala Jagatam Sindhu Tutaya Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhaktume Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhaktume Hara Brahma Pidatu Valaya Dula Ulanayano Nivasini Ladra Nihita Charano Nantashirasti Rasanando Radha Sarasa Bapura Lingana Sukho Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhaktume Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhaktume Navayate Rajam Dakshakanathamani Yabhibhavam Nayacheham Ramyam Sakala Janakamyam Varavadhu Sadakale Kale Pramata Patina Vitacharito Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhaktume Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhaktume Haratam Samsaram Dhrutattanamasaram Surapate Haratvam Papanam Vitatam Maparam Yaravapate Ahodine Nate Nita Charano Nishitamitam Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhaktume Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhaktume Jagannathashtakam again Jagannathashtakam punyam Yapatet prayata shuchi sarva papa vishuddhatma vishulokam sagacchati. One more time. Jagannathashtakam punyam yapatet prayata shuchi sarva papa vishuddhatma Vishnulokam sagacchati. Shri Jagannath Ashtakam ki jai. Bhagavad-gita chapter 8. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Taraka Brahma Yoga, Atha Ashtamo Dhyayaha. Arjuna Vacha, Kim Tad Brahma Kim Adhyatmam, Kim Karma Purushottama, Adi Bhutam Chikim Proktam, Adi Daivam Kim Uchyate, Adi Yagya Katam Kotra, Dehesmin Madhusudana, Prayana Kali Chakatam, Geyo Siniyatatmavi. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Aksharam Brahma Paramam, Sabhavo Dhyatma Muchite, Bhuta Bhavod Bhavakaro, Visarga Karma Sangjita, Adi Bhutam Sharo Bhava, Purushashchadi Daivatam, Adi Yagyo Hamevatra, Dehe Deha Vritambara. Antakale chamameva smaran mukva kalevaram yaprayati samadbhavam nati yasyatra shangshaya yang vapi smaran bhavam tajatyante kalevaram tam tam evaite kaunteya sadatad bhava bhavita tasmat sarveshu kaleshu Mam anusmarad yudhyacha Maryarpita mano budhir Mami vaishyasya samshaya Abhyasa yoga yuktena Chetasa nanyagamina Paramam purusham divyam Yati partanu chintayan Kavim puranam anushashitaram Anonaniyam samanusmeridyaha Sarvasya dataram achintya rupam Aditya varnam tamasa parastad Prayana kale manasa chalena Bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva Ruvar madhye pranamaveshya samyak Satam param purusham upaiti divyam Yadakshanam Veda Vado Vadanti Vishanti Yad Yattayo Vitaraga Yadichanto Brahmacharyam Sharanti Tate Padam Sangrahena Pravakshe Sarvadvarani Samyamya Manohridi Narudyacha Murtyadya Yatmana Pranam Astito Yogadharanam Om iti kaksharam brahma vyaharan mamanusmaram yaprayati tajandeham sayati paramam gatim ananya cheta satatam yo mam smarati nityashaha tasyaham sulabha partha nitya yuktasya yogina mamupetya punarjanma Tukalayam ashashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim paramam gata abrahma bhuvana loka punar avartino arjuna mamupetya tu kaunteya punar janma navidyate sahasra yuga paryantam arhatyad brahmano vidu Ratrim Yuga Sahasrantam Teho Ratra Vidojana Avyaktad Vyaktaya Sarva Prabhavatyar Haragame Ratyagame Praliyante Tatraibhavyakta Samjake Bhuta Grama Saevayam Bhutva Bhutva Praliyate Ratyagame Vashapartha prabhavatyar haragame, parastasmatu bhavonyo, vyakto vyaktat sanatanaha, yaksak sarveshu bhuteshu, nashyatsu navinashyati, avyakto shara ityuktas, tamahu paramam gatim, yam prapya nanivartante, tadama paramam mama, purusasa paraparta, bhaktya labhyasvananyaya, yasyantastani bhutani, yena sarvam idam tatam, yatra kali tvanavratim, avratim chaiva yogina, prayata yanti tam kalam, vakshami bharatarshava, agnir jyotiraha shukla, shanmasa uttarayanam, tatra prayata gachanti, brahma brahma vidojana, tumo ratristata Krishna, shanmasa dakshanayanam, tatra chandramasam jyotir, yogi prapya nivartate, shuklo krishne kati yete, jagata shashvate mate, ekaya yatya navratim, anyaya vartate puna, naite sriti partha janan, yogi muyati kashchana, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu, yoga yukto bhavarjuna, vedeshu yagneshu tapasu chaiva, daneshu yat punya palam pratishtam, adeti tat sarvamidam vaditva, yogi param stanam upaiti chadyam. Om tat sariti Srimad Bhagavad-gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambhade Taraka Brahma Yogo Nama Ashtamodhyayaha Hari Om. Translations, please. All together now. Chapter 8, Attaining the Supreme. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the Self? What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. Who is the Lord of sacrifice? And how does he live in the body, O Madhusudana? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the Self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma, or fruit of activities. O best of the embodied beings, the physical nature which is constantly changing is called Adibhuta, the material manifestation. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods, like those of the sun and moon, is called Adidaiva. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as the super soul in the heart of every embodied being, am called Adi Yagya, the Lord of sacrifice. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and he is transcendental beyond this material nature. One who at the time of death fixes his life air between the eyebrows, and by the strength of yoga, with an undeviating mind, engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Persons who are learned in the Vedas, who utter Omkara, and who are the great sages in the renounced order of enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now briefly explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day. Such also is the duration of his night. At the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest from the unmanifest state, and thereafter, when the night falls, they are merged into the unmanifest again. Again and again, when Brahma's day arrives, all living entities come into being, and with the revival of Brahma's night, they are helplessly annihilated. Yet there is another unmanifest nature, which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. That which the Vedantists describe as unmanifest and infallible, that which is known as the supreme destination, that place from which, having attained it, one never returns, that is my supreme abode. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading, and everything is situated within him. O best of the Bharatas, I shall now explain to you the different times at which, passing away from this world, the yogi does or does not come back. Those who know the Supreme Brahman attain that Supreme by passing away from the world during the influence of the fiery god, in the light at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the fortnight of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, reaches the moon planet, but again comes back. According to Vedic opinion, there are 2 ways of passing from this world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back, but when one passes in darkness, he returns. All the devotees know these 2 paths, O Arjuna. They are never bewildered. Therefore, be always fixed in devotion. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all of these, and at the end, he reaches my supreme eternal abode. Srimad Bhagavad-gita ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Srimad Bhagavatam class. you. It'll be number 3. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Last chance now. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaur Premanande, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sorry. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhiraye. Before beginning this discussion on the Srimad Bhagavatam, I offer my respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who brought the Srimad Bhagavatam to the world and who gave us the service of spreading it to every home. Haribol. I offer my respectful obeisances to all the assembled devotees. Vancha kalpadrishcha kripasinabhe vachapatitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So what are the symptoms of one advancing devotional service? Along any path, one wants to see signposts. And these are plentiful in the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Bhagavatam, which are one and the same. And also the teachings have been continued by the great acharyas, giving us the symptoms of devotional service at its various stages. I'll mention briefly that in the book Madhurya Kadambini, which I happen to be holding in my hands right now, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur gives us a step-by-step understanding of levels of advancement, or rather he defines the various levels of advancement in devotional service. And the first is called Shraddha, which means that one develops a sense that one appreciates devotional service. And this may come in the form of someone seeing the devotees, seeing Krishna somewhere in a picture, and then thinking, oh, this is really nice. There's a description in the Bhagavad-gita in the 6th chapter where Krishna says that because of one's purva samskars, or previous impressions in devotional service in a past life or lives, that in the next life one naturally becomes attracted. Without seeking it, one suddenly becomes attracted, sympathetic towards devotees and their cause and so forth, even though in the beginning they may not know exactly what it is. These are some of the general descriptions of Shraddha, and that means there's a slight awakening of the inclination to practice devotional service, after which comes a desire to be with devotees. This is the next stage. One wants to associate, and one likes the devotees and thinks that these people really are doing the ideal thing. I wish I could do it too. Maybe I'll spend time with them. And after spending one's time with devotees, then there's a stage at which one may develop one's own taste for the practice and decide that I'd like to do this as a lifetime practice. And this is the stage where ado shraddha tata sadhusanga to bhajana kriya, that one begins with a vow to practice devotional service. And then there's an ocean to cross called anartha nivritti. And the acharyas make us aware of the fact that this ocean means that now that we're serious, we may notice that we have innate obstacles to our path of devotional service. So some of those anarthas are listed in the Madhurya Kadambini, and they begin with the anartha of sleep. And this comes as one begins to hear and chant that there's a sense of sleepiness. It's not because you're tired. Not you, I'm talking about an ordinary person. It's not because one is tired, but it's because the mind wants to go anywhere else except into Krishna Katha. So if you ever are feeling lively and then you pull out a book and then suddenly you fall asleep, this is one of the anarthas. And then another anartha is distraction, that when you're attempting to practice devotional service from your chair to the desk where you planned on picking up the Srimad Bhagavatam, you meet with your iPhone. And then 3 weeks later, you remember, oh, I was trying to go to my desk. And even while chanting Hare Krishna, there may be distractions. And then comes another anartha, which is that one may be practicing devotional service, not having distractions, and be fully awake, but just not interested at all. And then there's a sense of urges that are there naturally within the mind and senses that distract us, and also qualities that, like anger and lust, that Krishna recommends in the Bhagavad-gita, Shaknoti haivayashodhum praksharira vimokshanat kama krodod bamambegam sayukta sa sukhinara he said, if you want to be happy as a human, you should learn to get over these and be able to get beyond the lust and desire and anger and so forth. But these are naturally there within the mind and heart. And it's not until one actually says, I'm going to be steady or try to be steady, that we notice them. Because otherwise, they're just part of our life, and we don't even know that we're being distracted or overcome by base qualities. So during anartha nivritti, there's a way in which one has to continue despite the fact that one is confronted with these obstacles and not be dissuaded. And as one continues, then, as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out, the nectar begins to flow. Of course, before that, there's a state of steadiness that one comes to, and it's noticeable, as in the Bhagavatam, tada rajas tamo bhava kama lobadayas chaye cheta iter anavidam stitam sattve prasidati. As one's practicing devotional service, the verse I just quoted says, there'll be a time, tada, at some time, you'll notice that, oh, I'm not being assaulted by these 5 obstacles as much. They're starting to reduce. I'm actually interested, so I stay awake when I hear. You'll notice that. And then you're not attracted by the distractions, or you put yourself in a position where you won't be distracted because you know ahead of time that the distractions will come. Start to notice these. And also, you notice that the lower modes of nature, or the qualities that are stimulated by the lower modes of nature, like anger and lust, they're no longer as prominent. There's a kind of pinching that one gets from these qualities that hurts, because they're forcing us to act in various ways. They're impelling us, go here, look at that, be like this. But one will notice, tada rajas tamo bhava kamalubadayas jaya. These are diminishing. And when the 5 obstacles that I've just named are no longer present, then one comes to the stage called nishta. Nishta is cognate in English with the word stand. And it means that you can put your 2 feet on the ground and you're not pushed around. You have a place to stand. Or we say you have an understanding, which means that you know what's what. And you're very clear about it, and also you're awake to devotional service. You're there, you're always there, you're steady because you're nishta, you're fixed. From nishta comes ruchi, which is that your mind becomes attracted to Krishna in various forms. Like if you see the deity and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, I really like looking at the deity, I don't want to stop looking at the deity. Or when you hear the chanting of the holy name and you think, oh, I really like this. This is the best sound I've ever heard in my life. I've never heard anything like it. These are glimpses of ruchi. And also hearing, one likes to hear. One wants to show up when the hearing is taking place. And then chanting. All of these become nectarian because there's nectar that starts to flow. The nectar is always there, but I'm blocking it because of my own existential situation and the coverings that I've taken on. I've acquired them over time. Then after ruchi comes asakti. Asakti means exclusive attachment. This is really important because, as we were talking this morning, you have to marry your mantra. In order to come to the perfection of devotional service, one has to come to this point where the only thing that matters to me is attaining the goal. And this is what asakti means, which means that one is fully dedicated and completely attached to Krishna to the exclusion of other things. Although one may work in the world, one has to pull one's mind away from the world in order one has to pull one's mind away from devotional service in order to attend to one's worldly duties, because one's so inextricably attached to devotional service. Whereas in ruchi, it's very easy to pull one's mind back to devotional service from the world. In asakti, it's very difficult to pull one's mind away from devotional service to attend to the world. And then comes bhava. Bhava means there's a point at which the heart melts. Dhruta chitta, and then one begins to experience within the heart It's like a movie theater. Coming to a theater near you, the pastimes of the Lord begin to manifest within the heart in such a way that one's relishing those flavors of the pastimes of the Lord within the heart. And after bhava thickens, it becomes prema. And there's not a plateau, but it eternally refines in prema and becomes more and more intense. One's love expands the way a beam of light, when you shine it into the sky, theoretically it expands forever, unlimitedly. Same thing with devotional service to Krishna and prema. So, let's talk just a little bit more about the symptoms of beginning devotional service. When one first takes to the process of devotional service, Shastra Sarprada, please take this book really quick. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, thank you. And find the section that talks about Utsahan Mayi. There are other symptoms in the very beginning of devotional service that we'll probably benefit from hearing about. Thank you, less than 5 seconds. And the first is called Utsahan Mayi. That Utsaha means, as you know, enthusiasm. Mayi means to be full of something. So one becomes full of beginner's enthusiasm. And this is symptomized by one taking devotional service and then feeling like, I'm already there. Because there is a sense of complete relief once one decides that I want to be in devotional service. And there's also a rush that one gets that's of taste. And sometimes even a free sample that Krishna gives, that here's what it feels like to be in devotional service. One may have some intense experiences. And then one may say that I'm a pure devotee already. In fact, this phenomena was so pervasive. In the early days, we used to call it the pure devotee syndrome. Somebody would join in after a couple of weeks, and they'd be a pure devotee until they realized they weren't. Because oftentimes that early enthusiasm, it wanes. Just like with playing the piano. Somebody gets a few piano lessons and notices, like, I'm pretty good at this. And it's like, not only pretty good, I'm a master. And then one actually hears a real master play and then realizes, oh, I don't know anything. That's a stage in many disciplines. And the next is that one may have a taste, and then the taste goes away. Ganatarala means thick and thin. Vyuta vikalpa means that one's mind fluctuates. One thinks, oh, I'm going to just dedicate my life to devotional service, and then a week later say, I think I'm going to start a business and make money first. And back and forth, there's this way, how I get adjusted to the world and my love for devotional service. Yes, but the world's calling to me. Ganatarala. And niyamakshama. The devotee makes a vow. From today I will chant such and such number of rounds and will pay so many obeisances. I'll also perform services for the devotees. I won't talk about anything except the Lord. I'll give up all association with people who talk gossip. Though the devotee makes such resolutions every day, he is not always able to carry them out. This is called niyamakshama, or inability to follow rules. And finally, taranga rangani. It's that when one does take to devotional service, one becomes attractive. It's what everyone's looking for, actually, the effulgence one gets by dedicating oneself to devotional service. And then people will come forward and say, oh, you're very great, and here's a gift, and thank you for walking the earth. And then one might think, wow, I am pretty great. And this is a way in which one may block one's advancement in devotional service. At some period, one think, oh, well, this fulfills all my desires because I actually wanted to be a great person. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, don't try to be a great devotee. Just be a good devotee. Stay out of the great realm, because that's dangerous. And it's hard to resist for a neophyte that somebody comes and says, you're great. And he's like, yeah, not really. He's like, well, maybe I am. So this is a danger. So he mentions these different psychological states. Now over to the Bhagavad-gita, we find that Arjuna wants to know a little bit more about Nishta. So just as a cursory study in the Bhagavad-gita, in the second chapter, Arjuna said, so what's the symptoms? Because that's what we're talking about today. How do we identify where we are in devotional service? How can we examine ourselves and see the symptoms? And so Arjuna says to Krishna, tell me, please, what are the symptoms of somebody who's advancing in devotional service? So Krishna first says, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyeva atmanatushta stita pragnasta dochite. A person who's fixed in consciousness is no longer obligated to chase after the various pushings of the mind. The mind's always suggesting something. You pick up your bead bag and it says, oh, you need something on Amazon Prime right now. And then I have to chase it. Or various or myriad other kinds of impulses and desires. A devotee who's fixed in consciousness, has attained nishta, isn't obligated to chase them, because atmanyeva atmanatushta, the devotee's feeling satisfaction. And when we feel satisfaction, we feel, I don't want to go anywhere else. And I have enough right now where I am. No need to chase anything else. And this is a stage to aspire to look for. How can I get steadiness in devotional service? 2 feet on the ground, not being pushed around by material desires. So, in the Bhagavatam, it's described, and I say it's because I forget exactly who said this, but that there's 2 people who are actually happy in this world. The fool and the Paramahamsa. Everybody else in between is miserable. So live with it. So here's the idea. The fool doesn't know that he's unhappy. The fool is in so much ignorance that he thinks this is great. Ignorance is bliss, right? So he's satisfied. Krishna mentions various kinds of people covered by ignorance. Namam duskrituna muda prapadyante naradama maya pritagyana asuram bhavamashrita. So 4 kinds of people with a deluded mentality, and some of them just feel that working hard all day long, getting a paycheck, and then watching a little TV, having a TV dinner. Do they still have those? That was the thing from the 60s. Pre-made meal you put in the oven, a little intoxication or whatever, and then I'm satisfied, I'm happy. Person in ignorance thinks this is happiness in life. Baseball, football, cricket, and little absorption in the material world. Everything's fine. I'll just get through. I may die in 1,000,000 years, but I'll deal with it when it comes. So in ignorance, someone thinks they're happy. It's not actually happiness, but that's what they think. And then there's the Paramahamsa, who has risen above the material world altogether and is fully absorbed in serving Krishna. That person is really happy. Then there are those who come out of ignorance. They're awakened to the fact that the material world is, my attachment to the material world, my involvement is folly, and therefore I should rise above it. And they take to the bhajana kriya, and they enter into anartha-nivritti, trying to clear the obstacles and so forth. They're not all the way there to the Paramahamsa stage, or long ways from it, and they're also not able to embrace the illusion anymore. And so there's a kind of sense of suffering in that I'm not where I want to be. Nonetheless, there's also a sense that I'm going in the right direction. So in this case, Krishna says, Jata Shraddha Makkatasu Nirvina Sarvakarmasu. When you know that the material world's not for you anymore, but you still can't control your senses completely. Krishna says, don't worry, you're on the right track. You're going to reach that point, so keep going. And the mantra for that stage of life, that interim stage, is keep on keeping on. Can everyone repeat that? I was leaving Hawaii one day, late for a flight, and a brahmachari ran out to the window of the car and said, "Give me some instruction." I said, "Keep on keeping on," because we were in a hurry. That's all I could tell him. And then we came back a few years later. He said, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "No." And he said, "You told me something to save my life." I said, "What'd I tell you?" And he said, "Keep on keeping on." That's what I've been doing. So we have to keep on keeping on in the practice. Rupa Goswami said it's like medicine. It won't taste sweet at first, so do it as duty. Do it as taking medicine, and then you'll gradually come to the point where you'll feel that, oh, this is where all the nectar is. I don't want to be anywhere else. So, throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find examples of people who are completely liberated. What does that look like? What are their symptoms? Well, there are various symptoms, but looking at the personalities is nice because we can see the unusual qualities of people who are liberated. That's what we get in the Srimad Bhagavatam. An exposition of these. So these are some of my heroes from the Bhagavatam, if I may. And the first one is Jad Bharat. So one of the ways you can know that you're completely liberated, I'll point out, from 5-9-11. Is that, now I'm talking about people in a very advanced stage of life, and it's not that I'm necessarily recommending that you do these things. But if you don't mind being the one in the family that you get the part of the cooking, the meal that was stuck to the bottom of the pot. Let's say it was burned and at the bottom of the pot, and it was burned and it was left over. Or what anybody else won't eat and they give to you, they just mix it in a bowl altogether. You know, the old stuff and the stuff that's, now again, I'm not recommending this, and I'm not saying that one should imitate this. And we shouldn't imitate any of the Paramahamsas, but I'm just giving a sample of what somebody in supreme consciousness looks like, because the Bhagavatam gives it. So let's look at this verse, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Jad Bharat, by the way, has a history. He was a king named Bharat Maharaja, and he left his kingdom early. Have you ever started for an exam early? You know it's coming. It's a big midterm. So you say, I'm going to start studying before I walk out of this classroom, and I'll have a head start on everybody. And have you ever then, because you got the head start, and then later on you remember the day before, it's like, oh, I didn't study at all, except for that one day. Some kind of a psych out. In any case, Bharat Maharaj, he cut out early. He's famous for having left behind an ideal situation. Anybody have an ideal situation? You're all shaking your heads no? Yes? Some do. So, do you feel like walking away from it? Generally not. Bharat Maharaj really did have an ideal situation, and he did walk away from it for the sake of rising to the highest level of consciousness. So he went off to the forest. He gave up his kingdom. That's the hard thing to give up, is power. Once people get in power, Michel's iron laws of oligarchy, he's a sociologist. He said that once somebody gets in power, they no longer do their duty once they're in power. What they do is expend all their energy trying to stay in power. And that's their main occupation in life. Somehow or other stay in power because it's so intoxicating. Well, Bharat had complete control, but he gave that up. He also had a beautiful family, and for the sake of self-realization, he gave them up, and he went away to the forest, and he was meditating. But he saw one of those little, TikToks about a deer? There's lots of animal things that must be in my algorithm, little animals. And the deer, of all the little baby animals, is like seems the most helpless, vulnerable, and cute. You just want to take him home, right? See a little deer walks in your yard, it's like, oh, can we keep him? We have to, because where's his mother? That's what happened to Bharat Maharaj. He saw a little deer, and he said, I'm taking him in. And he was all alone, and then he had a companion who was the deer who used to, while he was meditating, would nuzzle up against him. You imagine that? A little baby deer nuzzling against your leg while you're so-called meditating, and then you're like, oh. Although he was going through the motions of his practice, his mind was gone. He lost it completely. And when he passed away, as we just read in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, the culmination of your consciousness, or what you're most absorbed in when you leave the world, is how material nature accommodates you for your next life. So by Krishna's arrangement, because he was such an advanced and dear devotee, he got the body of a deer. However, unlike most deer, he remembered his previous life, and as a deer, he took up his practice again as best he could, doing Ashtanga Yoga. And then in his next life, he became Jad Bharat. And when he came out as Jad Bharat in the world, he had full remembrance of how he had lost the opportunity, had to endure the body of a life of a deer, and then having gotten this next opportunity in a Brahmin family, he didn't want anything to do with the world. And he was fully determined at this point. In fact, a couple of points Prabhupada, that I picked up from Prabhupada's purport, he was callous to all duality. Callous to all duality. So you know you're liberated when you're callous to all duality. And the second aspect of his life experience as Jad Bharat was, he was determined to finish his business in the material world. So these are two symptoms of someone who's come to this advanced stage. Of course, this could be described as nishta, this determination. I'm going to finish my business in this lifetime. And also, you're callous to any dualities in this world. So here's what it says. The platform... Oh, wait a minute. How about the verse? Just go up once. Jad Bharat used to work only for food. His stepbrothers took advantage of this and engaged him in agricultural field work in exchange for some food. But actually, he did not know how to work very well in the field. He did not know where to spread dirt or where to make the ground level or uneven. His brothers used to give him broken rice, oil cakes, the chaff of rice, worm-eaten grains, and burned grains that had stuck to the pot. But he gladly accepted all this as if it were nectar. He did not hold any grudges and ate all of this very gladly. So you know, if someone gives you, whatever situation you're in, you get whatever you get, and you take it as nectar. You're liberated. Prabhupada writes, the platform of Paramahamsa is described in Bhagavad-gita 2.15, Samatuka sukham tiram somritat vayakulpate. When one is callous to all duality, the happiness and distress of this material world, one is fit for amritattva, eternal life. Bharat Maharaj was determined to finish his business in this material world, and he did not at all care for the world of duality. He was complete in Krishna consciousness and was oblivious to good and evil, happiness and distress, as stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya 4.176. Dvaite bhadra bhadra gan shab manodharma. E bhalo, e mando, shab brahm. In the material world, conceptions of good and bad are all mental speculations. Therefore, saying this is good and this is bad is all a mistake. One has to understand that the material world of duality, one has to understand that in the material world of duality, to think that this is good or that is bad is simply a mental concoction. However, one should not imitate this consciousness. One should actually be situated on the spiritual platform of neutrality. So we can't imitate it because it'll spring back. Those who, for instance, say that I'm going to be a very advanced person by not sleeping enough. You'll find them sleeping when they get behind the wheel of a car, when they sit down for Srimad Bhagavatam class, when they start to chant japa, and what's called dive bomber japa, and the head's going up and down. So until one comes to this clear consciousness naturally and develops it, of course we regulate our senses, but we shouldn't be militant with the senses and try to destroy them. We should have a friendly relationship with them and bring them along on the path of devotional service until the senses become purified, as per the verse, Sarvopati Vinirmuktam. However, we can see that when one comes to this level, which is obviously possible for everyone, there is a stage at which we are callous to all duality. And if you start to see it in yourself, and I might add that the various stages, the hierarchy of stages, I guess that's redundant, the stages of devotional service may appear early at certain points. There's a way in which one may have a flash of a sense of taste that comes, as I said before, a free sample. So it's not that they only happen in sequence, but you may get them out of sequence like Narada Muni did when he got a little sample from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who showed him what it feels like to be completely liberated from the material world. Nonetheless, step by step, one will come to this stage of being callous to duality and also being completely determined to finish one's business in the material world as Jad Bharat did. So that's Jad Bharat. Haribol. And the next one is another of my all-time favorites, great hero, Didichi. Didichi Muni was asked for a donation. What was that donation? They needed his bones. So this is at 6:10:1. And here's the description. Shukadev Goswami said, after instructing Indra in this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, the cause of the cosmic manifestation, then and there disappeared from the presence of the onlooking demigods. Is everyone okay? Do you have enough oxygen? Oxygen level is low. O King Parikshit, following the Lord's instructions, the demigods approached Didichi, the son of Atarva. He was very liberal, and when they begged him to give them his body, he at once partially agreed. However, just to hear religious instructions from them, he smiled and jokingly spoke as follows. O elevated demigods, at the time of death, severe, unbearable pain takes away the consciousness of all living entities who have accepted material bodies. Don't you know about this pain? In this material world, every living entity is very much addicted to his material body. Struggling to keep the body forever, everyone tries to protect it by all means, even at the sacrifice of all his possessions. Therefore, who would be prepared to deliver his body to anyone, even if it were demanded by Lord Vishnu? Good question to ask yourself. The demigods replied, O exalted Brahmana, pious persons like you, whose activities are praiseworthy, are very kind and affectionate to people in general. What can't such pious souls give for the benefit of others? They can give everything, including their bodies. Those who are too self-interested beg something from others, not knowing of others' pain. But if the beggar knew the difficulty of the giver, he would not ask for anything. Similarly, he who is able to give charity does not know the beggar's difficulty, for otherwise he would not refuse to give the beggar anything he might want as charity. The great sage Didichi said, just to hear from you about religious principles, I refuse to offer my body at your request. Now, although my body is extremely dear to me, I must give it up for your better purposes, since I know that it will leave me today or tomorrow. O demigods, one who has no compassion for humanity in its suffering and does not sacrifice his impermanent body for the higher causes of religious principles or eternal glory is certainly pitied even by immovable beings. If one is unhappy to see the distress of other living beings and happy to see their happiness, his religious principles are appreciated as imperishable by exalted persons who are considered pious and benevolent. This body, which is eatable by jackals and dogs after death, does not actually do any good for me, the spirit soul. It is usable only for a short time and may perish at any moment. The body and its possessions, its riches and relatives must all be engaged for the benefit of others, or else they will become sources of tribulation and misery. Shukadeva Goswami said, Dadichi Muni, the son of Atharva, thus resolved to give his body to the service of the demigods. He placed himself, the spirit soul, at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in this way gave up his gross material body made of 5 elements. Dadichi Muni ki. So if somebody comes and asks you a donation for your body, and you say those same things, you know you're liberated. The third person is Bali Maharaj, and the epitome of his mood is expressed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bali Maharaj was a great king and warrior. He and his armies had taken over the universe. And then Krishna came as a little dwarf named Vamana to take it all back from him. And at some point he realized that this was the Supreme Personality of Godhead coming to take everything back. And his spiritual master was a fake spiritual master, Shukracharya, who was concerned that if you give up all of this, how am I going to get paid? So he told him, don't do it. But Bali Maharaj is famous for saying, well, if it's Vishnu asking, it's my duty, I have to give it. And Bali Maharaj had already promised, his guru told him that there was a clause in the contract. You didn't pour water from your water pot, and you didn't say Om, so it's not done yet. In fact, his guru, Shukracharya, who was a mystic, made himself really small and got inside the spout of the water pot to try to block the water from coming out so the deal wouldn't go through. That didn't work. And so, because Bali Maharaj had this mood in his heart, Krishna noticed it, that he was ready to give up all his wealth and whatever he had acquired. And therefore, Krishna is known as Bhavagrahi Janardana, which means he knows your mood of surrender. And in Bali's situation, at first, he couldn't offer his respects properly to the Supreme Lord because he was going on with his work as a demoniac king, and he was surrounded by all kinds of other demons. And he couldn't fully express himself, but he had that desire in his heart, and Krishna knew it, so he brought it out of him. So we can remember that desire within our heart to fully surrender to Krishna, to give everything to him, is the most important aspect of our existence. And if we can locate that within our own heart, that sincerity that I surrender everything to Krishna, then we're situated in the liberated state, even if we're not able to enact it yet. And finally, Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit was cursed by a Brahmin boy named Shringi. He had been out in the forest, if you'll indulge me just for one more minute, on an excursion of practicing his martial arts, and then he got really thirsty, uncharacteristically, because he was like a great yogi. He didn't normally get thirsty, but he got really thirsty. He went into the sage of Shamika Rishi, and he hoped, did the king, to get some water. The king was meditating and in trance and didn't even notice him come in. Have you ever had that happen? Someone doesn't recognize you when you come in, and then you're like, don't they know who I am? And then he became indignant like that. So in anger, he went outside the hermitage he picked up a dead snake, came back in, hung it around the neck of Shamika Rishi, and left. And it spread like wildfire through the forest that this had happened, that the king had insulted this sage. And so the son of Samika Rishi named Shringi was playing nearby, heard about it, and became so angry. As a little kid, he then, with some Brahma Tejas, it's like the power of a Brahmin at that time, it was the last vestiges of that before Kali Yuga started. In fact, this marks the beginning of Kali Yuga. He cursed the king. He said, I curse him to die in 7 days. And there's a way in which speech can be highly effective. Like if you're a judge and you're in session in court and you tell somebody that they have to go to jail for 7 years, they're going to jail. In fact, they get locked up right there. Everyone just does it and they put the person in jail. In a similar way, the Brahmanas at that time had this effective speech, and the son had inherited it also, being part of that culture. And he uttered that curse, and then the king heard about it. And he said, let the snake bird, which was the instrument of his death that the little boy had conjured, that there'll be a snake bird and it'll fly in and it'll bite him and he'll die. Let it come and bite me. I don't mind. I accept it. I accept the curse. And I just want to go on hearing and chanting about Krishna, use my last 7 days. So this is one of the symptoms of somebody who's advanced that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu points out. That's shantir. Shantir means forgiveness in your heart. Whatever happens, I let it go. And I'm going to read you a verse that's so shocking that you'll never be the same. And you may want to readjust everything in your life so that you're more intensely practicing devotional service. And if that doesn't appeal to you, then please cover your ears, because I'm about to read it. Everyone okay? This is from 1:1848. How tolerant is somebody who's liberated from duality and who's attracted to Krishna, you ask? You'd like to know? Here's how tolerant. The devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even though they're defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected, or even killed, they are never inclined to avenge themselves. You want to hear it again? Yes. Then it means you're on the path of liberation. You're already liberated. The devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even though they are defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected, or even killed, they are never inclined to avenge themselves. These are just a few samples from the Srimad Bhagavatam about those who are in liberated stage of consciousness. We also discussed in a very summary fashion the beginning symptoms, the progression of symptoms that one develops when one progresses in the path to devotional service. And now we'll take a few reflections or questions about this. Yes, Prabhu. 1, 2. And we have some microphones. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaja. It's very encouraging to hear about these stages. So, Maharaja, I had 2 questions about the stages. One is, you were mentioning in the context of Utsahanmai, were you trying to suggest that as years pass by in Krishna consciousness, we should try to evoke in ourselves that feeling of being new and the associated enthusiasm?
No, I didn't say that, or try to indicate it, but I think it's a good idea. The specific meaning of Utsahamai in this context is that one doesn't have a real sense of where one is. And you just get so overwhelmed with your new life, your new trappings and association, that you think like, I'm already there, I'm liberated, and so enthusiastic that the others are saying like, save a little bit of that for a rainy day also, because those are going to come as well.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, but it's always good to keep a beginner's mindset that I'm just starting. We should always feel like that. We need a microphone from Vaisesika.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. When you mentioned that stage, like that you are no longer like can't enjoy illusion anymore, so I remember that moment, like in the very beginning when I just found this bhakti path, when I didn't realize that like when just started the practice, that I tried to go back and still enjoy the things that I liked. And when I found that I can't enjoy it anymore, that was like very like shocking for me. That I lost like here. I didn't have any taste yet. So, but I can't and I can't enjoy those things. So that moment was very shocking. Like I realized that there is no way back. So I can't just like and I tried to I don't know like just trick myself and pretend that I still enjoy, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, it's shocking. Like COVID, sit down and have a bowl of soup. It's like, I can't taste this. Same thing. When one tastes something superior, gets contact with devotional service, the material world, it's all bland. It's all the same category. It's all the same thing. Somebody brought this up on the Bhakti community the other night about, well, the disciplic succession is bringing in this wisdom, it's coming down, but what about new ideas? And although we didn't really go into it fully, there's nothing new in the material world. I alluded to it from a verse, Punak Punascharvita Charvananam. This is something that Prahlad Maharaj mentions. Nothing new in the material world. It's all been done before. Or, as in George Harrison's song, he said, it's all been done and more. And there's a sense that everything's not a sense, it's a fact. Everything's just recycled. All the poetry, all the songs are all recycled. Just mix them up a little bit, pull it out this way. All the tastes we get. Okay, so yeah, you got a car now because you developed some technology. But as Prabhupada used to say, a dog runs on 4 legs, you're running on 4 wheels. But if your purpose is synonymous with the dogs, there's no difference between you and a dog. So we're in a closed universe, and all the information is the same. It's all just being recycled again and again. What's new is mentioned in the Bhagavatam, Tadvag Visargo Janataga Viplavo. It's coming from a different realm altogether. That's new, and that's news. Everything else is same old, chewing that which has already been chewed before. A couple more? Yes, 1, 2.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So this is a question related to the last verse that we saw.
Yes.
That the devotees don't have the desire to avenge themselves despite going through all those things.
So no road rage.
Right. So, but there are elements in the society which will to all.
Call a Kshatriya.
Right. So the devotees are not supposed to react to any
you can
of
protect
those
yourself.
things,
But the fact is that, this is the general feeling in the heart of the devotees, is that they don't name the perpetrator. There's a principle that comes up in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam when Parikshit Maharaj is interacting with the bull who represents Dharma. And the bull has been beaten. Bull is a symbol of religiosity. And somebody beat him, and now he was only standing on one leg. This is representative of Kali Yuga. There's a little semblance of truth, which may have been washed away pretty thoroughly recently in society, and all the other religious principles have been obliterated. Bull was beaten, as I just said for the 3rd time, and then he says, "Who did this to you?" And he wouldn't name a perpetrator, because when one names the perpetrator and says, "He did it to me," then you become complicit. Complicit means that it's not like in a fight at home, 2 kids are fighting. It's not who started it, because they all try to say that, right? It's like he started it. It's who's involved. that counts. And so we don't get involved in naming the perpetrator and trying to reverse it. Nonetheless, there are plenty of verses which indicate that one must do everything one can to protect oneself and one's loved ones. For instance, when Devaki was coming home on her wedding day with Vasudeva and Kamsa driving the chariot, that was the brother of Devaki, and he heard a prophecy, did Kamsa, from the Devas, from the demigods in the sky, that said, "You're a fool because the eighth son is going to kill you, and of your sisters." So then he immediately stopped the chariot, picked up his sword, grabbed the hair of his sister, and he was about to decapitate her, because that was his nature. And then Vasudeva dissuades him from doing so, using various arguments. And in that section, it's mentioned that it's the duty of every person to try to stay alive as long as possible. So it's not that we remain unprotected, or we put ourselves in precarious situations, or that we suffer the trespasses of others willingly, but it's an overall mood that this is happening somehow by the Lord's mercy. Tattenu kampam susamikshamaну bunjana evatma kritam vipakam. Whatever comes to me is coming as a merciful situation from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you may try to protect yourself. And Prahlad Maharaj brings this up also in his prayers. Famous, Valasyaneha sharanam pitaro nashingha nartasya chagamanudhanvati majato. Said a boat on water can't save a drowning man, the doctor can't save the patient, and the parents can't actually protect their children unless there's higher sanction. Because we see all the time, doctors give medicine. Does it always work? Do you get the opposite sometimes? And what about the best laid plans for saving people on the ocean with an extra boat? If we have to go back in history, we could remember the Titanic. And, it was a perfect boat, it was unsinkable, and it sank on its maiden voyage. And then parents are always trying to protect their children, but does it always work? No. So there's a higher force at play, and the devotees are cognizant of that always. Did I help balance it a little bit? It's a little bit of a shocking verse, but it expresses the mood of the heart of the devotees, is they don't take it personally. They're taking it as some kind of mercy, even in adversity. Okay, Prabhu, Navina in the back.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. How to balance this mood of going all in and saying, okay, Krishna, I'm yours. I give up and I surrender everything. And at the same time, it's a long game, because we're here for as long as Krishna wants us to be here. So it's kind of the preemptive strike. One internally surrenders. But we see also, like Rupa Goswami, he took a year to settle his estate and to make sure his folks were all right. And it wasn't like he just walked away from it and said, bye, I'm out of here. So there might also be that utsaha mai of, I'm fully surrendered now. I've given it all up. Like we know many devotees, when they joined, they just gave away all their stuff and all their possessions, and then later on they realized maybe that wasn't the most Krishna conscious or the smartest thing to do. So could you say something how, even though that giving up and that surrender is momentary and a continuous, but it's also sequential, a progressive path?
Yes. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 11th canto, Krishna says, Sve sve adhikarya nishta saguna parikirtita viparyo dosha syad ubayor eva nishtaya. It's a fixed principle that one should act according to one's adhikari. That is, that you're at a certain level, how should you act? According to the level you're at now. And what does Krishna say about that? He said, that's good. It's a guna, or a good quality, that you know where you are and you're able to act properly. Don't try to be somebody else. All the other positions are taken already. Just be yourself and act according to what you can do right now in this position. And don't feel that you have to compare yourself to others, other devotees, Paramahamsas, because water seeks its own level, and you're going to end up in a certain situation anyway. Having to deal with various stages of life is very beneficial, actually. To go through and deal responsibly with your station in life as you are in every era of your life, while still applying the principles of Krishna consciousness. It's described in the Sri Upanishad, Vidyam cha chayas tadvedo bayam saha avidyayam ratum tirtva vidyayam ratum ashnute. He says, when these are juxtaposed, that is, your obligatory life caused by the momentum from your previous life, you ended up in a certain family, and you have certain proclivities and obligations to fulfill, and at the same time you're taking your devotional service. When you practice these side by side, he said this is the way to actually make complete success of your life, because the two have to go together, and you can't neglect the fact that you're in a body and you have to deal with your circumstances. In dealing with the circumstances and applying the principles that Krishna gives in the Bhagavad-gita, like tolerance. So let's just say you're in a relationship in a family. Let's just say you have a spouse. Is that a reasonable assumption? Somebody might have a spouse. So spouses always get along. Oh, you're laughing now. Okay. So what happens if you don't get along with your spouse? Well, read Bhagavad-gita and learn how to be tolerant, learn how to find workarounds, how to communicate better, and so forth. In that process, applying Krishna's very simple instructions, his basic, I should say, instructions in the Bhagavad-gita about how to not be attached to results. You don't have to always be right. That really helps. And there are myriad ways in which, while engaged in so-called material life, that you learn more by applying the principles. After all, where are you going to get the opportunity? Let's just say you recluse to a cave, and who are you going to interact with? Who's going to bug you? Somebody will bug you eventually, but not like when you're in a family. And dealing with the various responsibilities and dealing with it in an enlightened engagement with the world is what Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad-gita. Don't try to become Paramahamsa, he says to Arjuna. Arjuna says, I'll just get a little begging bowl and I'll take off. And Krishna says, you're going to get a begging bowl. I'm going to see you back somewhere fighting, doing your warrior thing. It's just you're trying to avoid this fight because you're predicting the outcome and you don't like it. That's why you're not doing it. So don't do that. Do your duty in the world, but don't be attached to the result. And that's the message Krishna gives in the Bhagavad-gita. By doing that, one becomes fully mature. And when the right time comes, every aspect of life will become apparent, just as it is to the worm who becomes a butterfly, right? It becomes apparent that, the cocoon is opening up and now your wings are coming and it just flies to the next level. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur compares it meaning advancement in devotional service, in this Chaitanya Shikshamrita, to climbing a ladder. And he says, you put your foot on the rung that's available to you right now. Don't try to jump for the higher one because you'll slip and fall down. He said at the same time, once you put your foot on the ladder, once you're solid there, you should go to the next one. Because if you keep holding back, says, no, I'll just stay down here, then he said your advancement will be slow or non-existent. So you have to balance the two things together. We give the symptoms of Paramahamsas partly to show that, okay, if you're not willing to eat burnt remnants, you're not there yet. You're not callous to material existence. And I gave two disclaimers. I said, I'm not recommending this, that you artificially take up, says, just give me the burnt stuff. That doesn't prove you're liberated. What proves you're liberated is when you start to feel that you're not pushed by the senses and you actually have a superior engagement, that you have such a taste for your service to Krishna and your internal connection with him that you just are really no longer interested in the material world. Now I'm going to give a caveat, or a but, comma, but. In the Bhagavatam, outlandishly, outrageously, and much to the chagrin of people all over the world, Narada Muni says, Tyakva sadharmam charanam bhujam harer, bhajanu pakvota patet tato yadi, yatrakva babajam abuda mushakim kovarta apto bhajatam sudharmata. By which he's throwing everything I just said on its head. And he says, so what? You give up your job, and you give up your family, and you do this and that, and you just walk away for the sake of serving Krishna. And so what? You jumped, you gave away all your stuff, and then what? Patet. You fell down. Because why? Because you were not mature. It wasn't really a well thought out plan. You just went for it. He said, no problem. You did the right thing. Because devotional service is so important and it's so auspicious that even if you did it immaturely, but you jumped for it and you said, I'm going to do this, even if it was utsahamai and you went for it, he said, that counts on your record. You're the guy who went for it. So what? You had to come back. You're still, that's better, he says, than you got your whole material life together. You learned how to invest properly. You've made millions of dollars, 401k, perfect. Check all the boxes. My kids, they got a PhD at 10, and everyone in the family, no cavities, everything's good. He says, so what? That doesn't mean anything. That's his mood in the verse. So you have to balance the two together, as Prabhu is saying, because Naveen is a mature devotee. He's been around. He's seen a lot of stuff. And, when you're around for a long time, you live your life in Krishna consciousness, that whatever happens to you, if you stay in the process, it adds up to like compost. Anything that you think is like a throwaway, you put it in the bin, it's like, wow, this stuff is valuable. This is nourishing to my bhakti garden. You can pull it out and use it. And unless you fight the war of life and go through all the little battles and try to apply the principles of Krishna consciousness as you go, then you never actually become mature. You have to fight for it. And so what today's class is about is showing that there's a spectrum. And Navina Prabhu's point is so important that you can't jump the spectrum unless Krishna comes and gets you. And if he does, you better be ready. Because he could come down and say, like, right now. And you're like, not right now. On account of, I still have my job. And, we can see this in ourselves. What if Krishna wants to come and get you right now? And you just say, like, yeah, but, I still have a few things. So we try to divest ourselves of these things so that Krishna can take us at any time. Just be ready. Life's a preparation. Is that okay, Navina Prabhu? Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. That's for the question. Okay. A couple more. Yes. 1, 2.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. So you mentioned that as a part of our devotional lives, Anartha Nivritti is a vast ocean to cross. And what I wanted to ask was, a part of this big ocean is anger, at least for me. I feel like it's extremely difficult to overcome anger. And part of why it's so hard is because it's the impulse. It's in the moment. I might think like, oh, I won't get angry, but then something happens and then it just comes so fast. I don't know what happened. So how can we remain steady and in those moments where you feel so impulsive, what can we do?
Be prepared ahead of time. It's like when people learn how to communicate with their loved ones. It requires a little dexterity to communicate. For instance, if you live with somebody for a long period of time and there's a a sense that you have to cooperate, and everybody's senses are a little bit different. They're tuned differently. So you're in the same environment. You know, some people eat differently than you do, like they chew differently than you do. They sleep differently. There's all these different opportunities for some kind of discord. And so one of the ways in which somebody who's an astute counselor would talk to, for instance, a couple who lives together, is to point out to them that there are tools so that when something comes up, here's what you do. And you have to practice for it. So that, let's just say there's a disagreement. So how do you deal with a disagreement? There are different ways to do that. One is just to say, look we're either doing it my way or we're not doing it at all. That's called an ultimatum. And in my experience, ultimatums in business, in service, in relationships are not the most effective way to get what you want. In fact, usually you don't get what you want when you make an ultimatum, because what happens is, well, to use a cliche, you paint yourself into a corner, which is kind of a funny thing. If you ever see a cartoon and somebody's painting on the floor, and they get all the way to the corner, wet paint everywhere, and there's only that little patch left that they're standing on, and then they can't get out of the room. They got to wait till the paint dries, right? So when you make an ultimatum, then you got to wait till everything settles down or the person capitulates, which never happens. So don't do it. So this is advice, and if you get this practical advice, don't make ultimatums, then you'll realize this is one of the impulses of anger. It comes up, you say, ultimatum, make an ultimatum, this will fix it. So, no, it won't. Find a workaround instead. Are there workarounds? Yeah, there's plenty of ways to work around. And one of the ways is if somebody says something that really irritates you, instead of reacting to it, then repeat it back to them and try to get clarification. So if I understand you correctly, this is what you're saying. Is this what you're saying? I'm just giving you an example, because whoever's asking the questions is getting clarity. Because a question mark is like a little tennis racket. Somebody hits you something you don't like, or you can't understand. Not that you don't like it necessarily, you may not like it, but if you don't understand it, you don't know how to answer it, you just gently knock it back into their court and say, look, could you tell me exactly what you mean by this? And then if they're reasonable, then they may say, this is what I mean. It's like, oh, that's what you mean. So don't make ultimatums. Try to clarify the situation before you take the route of anger. Anger is like fire. It's the Rudra principle. And once it starts, it ruins everything. It's like war. Prabhupada points this out in the Bhagavad-gita. He says, wars don't work because both sides get wrecked. He says, World War II, everybody got smashed. And, people killed everything. So if you realize that, and you know where I realized it, especially? Rhetorical question, or you want to answer? On Sankirtan. After so many years of approaching people who didn't ask to be approached, and finding that, some people would, say things to me. I won't go into the details of all the ways, all the interactions that I've had over time. Someday I will. After a lot of sweet rice, you can get it out of me. I was like, yeah, so. But I learned a lesson, and that is one molecule of anger from me blows up into something inordinate that comes out of them. It was special. It's a special forum being on Sankirtan, because Krishna puts it right before your eyes. They say, I put one molecule of anger, and what did I get back? A waterfall. They just kept coming. Flash flood, washed away. Kentucky, gone in 2 days. And that's what happens when you get angry. And if you realize that, you're able to read the Shastra and listen to Krishna's words. He says, don't act like that. Do it in another way. And you learn some tools. When it comes up, you go, oh, good, this is first the urge comes up. And then you think, your intelligence takes over and you think, oh, good, now I get a chance to practice. Watch this. Krishna, I'm going to do it. Here I go. And you feel so satisfied, And then you'll notice that the environment changes. The person that you're interacting with, they suddenly go, wait, what? You're not going to fight on this? What happened to you? And then they calm down too. The whole situation comes down. And you start to realize that, wow, Krishna's advice in the Bhagavad-gita works in commonplace things. It's not such a heady thing. It's for some yogi in the Himalayas. It's for us, for living our daily lives, interacting with people that we don't like how they chew. And so, like, this thing, when I was a kid, I didn't like the way my brother chewed. Would you stop it? You know, like, yeah, I'll stop this. So apply the principles and be ready. Prepare yourself ahead of time. So I don't like leaf blowers. It's the thing I like least in the world. I'm admitting it right here. I think it's the worst invention that was ever made. I hate it. It ruins the world. Leaf blowers have ruined the world. I'm saying it right now. A perfectly nice environment, and there's stuff flying all over the place. Little bugs down there going, whoa, hurricane. You know, in the old days, there used to be a rake. You know, I could hear that sound like, oh, it's autumn time. The leaves are here, rake. You know, oh, how nice. But and so the other day, in my town in Burlingame, you can only blow those things by ordinance on Tuesday. But somehow my beautiful neighbors have people come over at all these odd times, and I'm trying to concentrate. I try either, you know, I want to be able to just be peaceful, and then all of a sudden, so you know, someone was blowing. Not only were they blowing in the side yard, but it was all coming over my fence. And so, you know, I took a chair and I tried to get the attention of the person, but they have headphones on. And it's as loud as a jet taking off, so they couldn't see me. And they said, just get down and say your thing. And I said, what's my thing? And I said, I forgive you. I said, I forgive you. And I got down. And I put the chair back, in his garden chair, because I was sitting out there chanting, and I wanted to let him know it was the wrong day. I mean, it's okay to let him know the wrong day, but I caught myself. I could say, okay, this is like, you could tell you stood up, you're going to make a statement. Be cool. Calm down, because, oh yeah, chill, be chill. Cool is from the 60s. Now it's chill, be chill. I was chill. So I chilled, and I'm chill, but I was ready. I said, I forgive you. He couldn't hear me, but I could hear me, and Krishna could hear me. And he said, yeah, good little, you know, trying to be a devotee person. So you can do that. Take it as your project. Write it as your top goal. You know, write your goals down. It's like how to be prepared when I get angry, because then it's in your mind. And when it comes up, then you're ready. And that's progress in life. It's really in the trenches progress. Go for it. Try it. I forgive you. Come on, with a little more, I forgive you, a little more feeling. I forgive you. Do it. See, keep practicing. Look in the mirror. Forgive yourself too, because we get down on ourselves so much because we live with ourselves. And you're like, yeah, I know you. I've seen you around for many lifetimes. I know what you've been doing. So you got to forgive yourself too. It's like, give it a chance. Krishna's given you a chance. Apichet sudaracharo. He doesn't look at the rough stuff. He just looks at your sincerity, and just try to concentrate on that and try to appreciate others for whatever good qualities they have. Okay, Prabhu? Over here? Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for your class. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So firstly, I think, I don't know if I should be happy or sad on the weekly forgiveness sessions from the blowing. So from you, if I get that.
What's he saying, Malini?
I was saying, should I be happy or sad for the weekly forgiveness sessions, for the blowing that happens?
Oh. It's a little different when you're doing the parking lot. I mean, it's difficult. It doesn't mean that, you know, well, it kind of does. I've never felt that, you know, I just see it as progress coming through, and you have to do what you have to do with the parking lot. I just think that it's the epitome of overblown technology. We think we're making so much advancement, but then there's no peace anywhere for anything. And, plastic, oh, what a great idea. Not really. I mean, there's so many things. Don't worry.
Thank you, Maharaj.
I forget.
Maharaj, I had a question though. Anyway, they say Vaishnavas, anger is also beneficial. So maybe I'll become Nalki and Murugrave. But Maharaj, anyone had a question for Dadichi Muni when he is ready to give his body away? Then at that point, he does say one statement that doesn't kind of gel with me, so I was just asking you. He's saying, I am ready to give my body even though it's very dear to me. So a person of that level, when he's already played his game and given the opportunity for demigods to say what he's, why does he say that? I mean, without that sentence also?
Yeah, that's in the text actually. When Vishnu tells him to go ask Dadichi for his bones, he said, he's totally detached. He'll give it to you, but he's going to ask you some questions because he likes Atma Tattva Gyan. He likes this stuff. So he's going to engage you a little bit. Don't worry about it. He'll say, well, why? Just so you can preach to him because he loves to hear that. And that's why he did it. Because he just wanted to bring it up. He said, don't you know this is really hard? Meanwhile, he was fully ready to give over.
So I got that part. But after that dialogue, after the conversation, when he finally says, now I give it, at that point he again says the fact that the body that is dear to me. So that part is not necessary.
He's exemplifying a conditioned soul in the whole pastime. And he's just showing that the body is the most dear thing. Not to him, he's ready to give it up for the highest cause, but he's saying that that's the most dear thing that we have.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks, Maharaj.
Yes, Jenna.
I wanted to add on to what you said earlier about like the anger situation and using interactions as practice. Anger is something that I've struggled with a lot, so I can totally relate to your situation. So using that interaction as practice is something that has helped me a lot. And how you were talking about that whatever comes at us is coming as a merciful situation from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So treating every situation like that practice to put in, that it's being sent from Krishna for you to practice that situation to remain still. And Krishna describes in the Bhagavad-gita almost like being indifferent between suffering and joy. So when those situations are sent to you, practice being indifferent in those situations. And they're coming at you from mercy for you to be able to practice being indifferent. And if you look at it that way, it's kind of hard to become really angry in those situations.
Huh? Jenna, way to go. Nicely put. Well, we've done a little survey of some of the symptoms of devotional service, and there's more to be said, but it's helpful to examine ourselves. Self-examination happens mostly at japa time. That's one of the reasons it's called swadhyaya. It's a time to look at yourself and see, how am I actually doing? Can I sit here? Am I interested in this? Am I struggling? And so forth. And then, of course, from that platform of being able to take time to actually examine oneself, then that will pervade one's day and week and month and life from that ongoing practice. And this is the way of making step-by-step gradual spiritual advancement. Om Tat Sat. Now we have a couple of announcements coming from the Bhakti community and our Sankirtan department. And Krishna Saka, Prabhu, did you have people you wanted to introduce who were here for the first time?
Yes, I want
You're
to
going to introduce them. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sure. I want to introduce. Oh,
No,
should
she's
I?
deferring to you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I want to introduce Kayla. She's first time to our ISV community here. Welcome, Kayla, to ISV, and she joins Bhakti Circle most of the all the sessions, and she's the best. All the questions she has the answer from the video. She's so she recollects all. Like she knows the answer of all the questions in the Bhakti circle. So thank you, Kayla, for joining, and yeah, you can say hi to.
Welcome. Hare Krishna.
You can say hi if you want. Yeah.
Oh, hello, Hare Krishna, everybody. I'm really happy to be here, and especially towards the end today. I was almost brought to tears by forgiving others and forgiving oneself. So I just want to say thank you.
Welcome. Haribol.
Thank you, Krishna Saka Prabhu, for letting us join the ISV channel. And thank you, Kayla. I was so happy to see you. You attended the entire session. So nice. She really participates very well in our circles, and she's always with Krishna Saka Prabhu in the breakout rooms, and very, very good participant. And I also want to, on the same lines, thank Jaina for coming very, very regularly to temple and associating with all the girls and everyone over here. So thank you, Jaina, for coming. And we all heard the reflection from Tim this morning in the Japa Circle. So Tim and Vicky, when he's first starting to talk about like Krishna being our paramour and like talking of all those things, I was like, wow, so much progress in such a short time. So thank you, both of you, for being so consistent. So as you can see that, if we provide a very genuine environment and just be ourselves and welcome these new participants to the community, it makes so much of a huge difference to everyone. And it's like, if you give a wallet to somebody who lost it, how happy that person is. It's exactly the same, like, we all are lost fallen souls, and getting them back to Krishna, what a great service it becomes. So whenever we give books, let's make sure that we bring those people on somehow or the other to the community, so that we can help them along with us to stand in the queue for Back to Godhead. So please, everyone who gives books, please welcome the newcomers, and we are here to support them. We have a strong community we are building. We need volunteers, so help us out, help these newcomers, be their mentors. We have a program which will help you to be the mentors and help them out. So please do that. Our usual programs for Bhakti community continued this week. We've completed our affirmation series. Last week, Tim and Vicky came up with a frame of all the affirmations. So if you're looking for a frame, they are giving it for free, and you can just take it from them. They printed out all the affirmations in a nice frame, and they were giving it to some devotees last week. So that series is finished, and we started a new series called Bhakti Lessons from the World, which Vaisesika Prabhu has started, and he gave the first class on search for true love, and we talk about the typical picture that Prabhu always talks about, the M&M picture where he saw on the road, and the discussion was so good. The newcomers could really resonate with the entire discussion for 1 hour. So that was one on Bhakti on Monday, and Bhakti Circle on Thursday. We did a discussion. We had a nice video on faith and reason, and fantastic discussion. Our session times are supposed to be 1 hour and 15 minutes. Now it's every time it's going beyond like 7, and people don't want to stop. So that just speaks to it, like how much people are loving these programs. So welcome all of them to the Bhakti Circle series. And then Women's Circle, we are restarting the Bhagavad-gita. We are on the 2nd chapter now, every Sunday 7:30. Daily mantra meditation sessions continue. Krishna Saka and Kautukarnava Prabhu keep bringing new devotees. Last class we had, yesterday there was Star who came to the show, and Maharaj said that she was really the star because she just coincidentally happened to get into the breakout room where Maharaj was leading, and she asked so many questions, and it just shows that people who just even come for the first time, they are just ready to dive into bhakti. So we were really so happy that she was there. And Krishna Prabhu also introduced Georgina from San Francisco, who actually got Srimad Bhagavatam. And she was thanking him in the class that, thank you, Krishna Prabhu, for not giving up on me and constantly pursuing me to get the Srimad Bhagavatam. And she wants to learn. And so much she was open, and she was so thankful for the community, and she came to the class. So thank you, Krishna Saka Prabhu. And Kautu Karna Prabhu, he also got Derek. He gave him Srimad Bhagavatam in Sacramento, and he told us in the community when he joined the class that he had met with an accident, and he actually thinks there's a bigger reason that he met these people and he got Srimad Bhagavatam. So there are so many people waiting for these books which we all are giving, but after books what? We have to really give them the genuine care and the love that we all have within us. So just let's spread the word, and please bring in everybody to Bhakti community. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for sharing those success stories, because it's nice to see how some people who got the books are coming back to the community and contributing as well. And devotees here are going out. I don't know if you're part of the Weekend Warriors group, but on Saturday, if you see, it is overflooding messages. I didn't check my messages for a couple of hours, and I saw there were more than 100 messages with pictures. These are all real stories. It's not that we are making these up. But couple of weeks ago, Vaisesika Prabhu mentioned about law of diffuse responsibility, where everybody thinks this is not mine. But I see that maybe it is law of infused responsibility, that everybody is thinking that it's my responsibility to give this Krishna consciousness to others, and everybody is making their effort to give a book, a Trimurti set, or a set of Srimad Bhagavatam to anybody who meets. And recently, Praveen Tamkane Prabhu, I don't know if he's here, but he sent a good news action broadcast on the Weekend Warriors saying that he saw a beggar at the traffic light, and everybody's ready with the books in their dashboard. So he picked up a book, and he thought he's not sure whether the beggar will take the book or not, but he gave the book to the beggar, and in the middle of the light, the beggar was reading the book. So this mood of giving this knowledge to everybody is very, very pleasing, and it's all coming because of the empowerment of His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu. So we want to continue that into our Janmashtami, and also to our Bhadra Purnima, which is coming up soon, for 2,500 Bhagavatam sets. And this weekend again, we have many, many spots. And some devotees are also going to distant places. Like there's a place called Mountain House, not Mountain View, where there is no cell phone reception properly. But devotees go there as well, and they're distributing and they're reporting after they come back. And Muir Woods also another place where there is no cell phone reception. But devotees are reaching out to different places. So please do join us. Today we have places in Dublin, where they're going door to door. We have Indian stores. Probably this may be one of the last 1 or 2 weekends before we go to the stores, because people who went out into India and other places will be back, and will resume our door to door after that. So please do join us. And our goal for the Janmashtami MSF is at least 50 Bhagavatam sets, and we're still inching towards our goal. So please do join us. Hare Krishna.
And now we're going to perform the Guru Puja. We have a worship ceremony for His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. So we'll roll up the carpet, we'll put away all the seats, and we'll reassemble here in approximately 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Hare Krishna. He's back. That could go in the back. This could go in the back. This I'm keeping. I'll keep it out here. Uruparim Gotishavatim Radha Kundam Girivaramoho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi He Guru Gyanadadina Bando Swanandadata Koronaika Sindo Vrindavana Sinahitavata Prasida Radha Pranaya Prachar He Dinabando Kuranaika Sindo Kuru Prasada Mai Mandamudhe Laksha Parade Bahupapa Gadhe Tatpada Padme Stu Matishna Krishna. I bow down to the beautiful lotus feet of my spiritual master, by whose causeless mercy I have obtained the supreme holy name, the divine mantra, the service of the son of Shachi Mata, the association of Srila Sarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami and his older brother Sanatan Goswami, the supreme abode of Mathura, the blissful abode of Vrindavan, the divine Radhakund and Govardhan Hill, and the desire within my heart for the loving service of Sri Radhika and Madhava in Vrindavan. O spiritual master, O giver of divine wisdom, O friend of the fallen, you are the giver of your own bliss, and you are the only ocean of mercy. Although dwelling in Vrindavan, you have descended for the welfare of fallen souls like myself, and you are preaching the divine love of Radha for Krishna. Please be kind upon me. O friend of the lowly, O Gurudev, you are the only ocean of mercy. I am a dull fool and have committed hundreds of thousands of offenses. I have fallen into a dense myriad of sins. Therefore grace me with your mercy, so that my mind may be fixed on your lotus feet and on Sri Krishna. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. Our only wish is to have our consciousness purify by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens our darkened eyes and fills our hearts with transcendental knowledge. He is our Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us a shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three folds. Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Gati Shadma. Bando mui sabadana te. Bando mui sabadana te. Jahara prasade bhai bhavatu riyaja. Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoy te. Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoy te. Guru mukha padma vakya chitete koriya aikya. Guru mukha padma vakya chitete koriya aikya. Sana kori ho mane Arna kori ho mane asha. Sri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utamagati. Sri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utamagati. Jai Prasade Puri Sarva. Jai Prasade Puri Sarva. लोटे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित प्रेमा भक्ति जहा होते आति जाति नाश जाते प्रेमा भक्ति जहा होते आति जाति नाश जाते तेरे गाय जहर चरितो जहर चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनार बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनार बंधु Lokanath, Lokera Jivana Lokanath, Lokera Jivana Ha ha, Prabhu Goro Doya Deha More Pada Chaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Kali Kupurtan Jadi Chao Kali Duga Pavana Kuli Poi Nashanda Shri Satchidananda Kao Hey. Gadadhar Madhan Nitaye Pranatan Advaita Prapujita Gaura Nimani Vishrambar Srinivas Ishvar Bhakta Samuva Chitta Chora Nariya Shashadar Maya Purishwa Nam Pravartana Sura Vihitana Shikshaka Nasikula Nayaka Madhava Radha Baba Pura Sarvabhura Shodhana Gajapati Tarana Ramananda Poshana Vira Pananda Vardana Shana Chanda Palana Haridas Modhana Dira Rajaras Bhavana Shamata Shad Kapati Vikata Nakama Shura Bhakta Palana Shiksha Jnana Tarana Chalabhakti Dushana Rama Kali Kukur Jadi Chao Hey Kali Duka Pavana Kali Boy Nashana Shakti Nana Nagao Hey Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishwapad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Stotha Shishiman Abhay Charana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishwapad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Stotha Shishiman Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Adanta Kodi Vaishnavindi Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Zagaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gokupinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sri Mayapur Navadvip Ki Jai. Sri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Jamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Sambhita Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the Assembled Devotees. All glories to the Assembled Devotees. All glories to the Assembled Devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Everyone okay? Yes. Better than okay, right? Okay. Well, you never go broke taking a profit. And if you take every day as an opportunity to add more to your spiritual bank account, especially by Shravanam Kirtanam, and go on a regular investment program, then you become wealthy spiritually. It's by the process that is recommended most by the Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So thanks everybody, because we're a community and we're as strong as our weakest link. And when we all come together and help one another become strong in spiritual life, and that includes helping one another through the various ups and downs that are inevitable in daily life, then we become fortified because we have help from all sides. Devotional service is a process of guidance and taking help from others, and we have to stay close to the fire in order to be able to withstand the freezing cold of the material world. Of course, I could have used it the opposite way nowadays because of global warming. And now we're going to have prasadam, but let's hear who cooked today from Avantika. Kali Yuga Pavana, Kali Bhuyanashana, Shri Sachinandana Gao Hai.
Hare Krishna. Today's prasadam was cooked by Bhaktavatsal Prabhu.
Hariva! Welcome back to Bhaktavatsal Prabhu. Haribo! And I'd like to make a special welcome to Bhaktin Purvi and her husband, Vijay Prabhu, who are visiting here from Houston, Texas. She teaches at the Gurukul, and right? The Goswami Academy, and she's visiting here for the weekend. Please welcome both of them. Are there any other announcements that don't involve a half hour of fundraising?
Hare Krishna. Today afternoon at 11 o'clock, from 11 to 5, there will be a book packing that's happening in the temple parking lot. Devotees are packing the Trimurti sets and some books for the Rath Yatra in San Francisco advance. We are packing it. So if you're interested, please join because it's a lot of fun. Packing the books, putting the stickers, putting the temple address. So if you need information, more information on that, you can contact Venudhari Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Haribo! Anything else? Now we're going to sing these beautiful Bengali prayers from Bhaktivinoda Thakur that say that the tongue is very difficult to control of all the senses, but we can do it by taking Krishna prasadam. So we're appreciating Krishna for giving us prasad and glorifying Him by honoring prasadam. Sharit advijja jodendriya tahe ka jive pele vishaya sagare tarma jidvayati loba moisu durmati take jeta katita shankare Krishna bore doyamoy Tori bare jivajay Swaprasad nadi lobai Shayana mutapao Radha Krishna gunagao Preme dako Sri Chaitanya Nitai Preme dako Sri Chaitanya Nitai Mahapashade Govinde Nam Brahmi Vaishnave Salpa Punya Pratam Rajan Vika Soda Vidayate Prasade Sarvadikana Anirasyo Vidayate Prasnanate Sato Yashu Payam Siddhate Trayopa Buddha Satyanta Nachivangar Sarkita Utita Bodhino Dasa Sabamayam Jainahi Bhagavat Shri Mahaprasad-ki Gora Premanande Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo Please come take prasadam.